But just to be efficient with our time, I'm going to go ahead and start our 2026 Impact 100 Atlanta Grants Writing Workshop. We are so grateful that all of you are here with us today. We have some really exciting things to celebrate. I'm not sure if our news from last night at our big reveal has made it out fully to the community. So I won't steal Sarah's thunder, but really excited to have such tremendous nonprofits a part of our exciting grant season this year. My name is Mackenzie Brandt. I am the Grants Chair for Impact 100. I'm here to support folks through the application process. You see other panelists here with me, Sarah Levitt, our founding president and past president, Jill Henry, who is Grants co-chair, nonprofit liaison, so she will be your best friend throughout this process as you hear from her, and then also Michael Lucas with AVLF, one of our grant recipients last year. So excited for a packed morning. If you've been a part of these in the past, you know that I will talk very quickly through all of our background information so that everyone has a chance to ask questions. Please feel free to drop them in the Q&A portion here or in the chat. Across Sarah, Jill, and I will do our best to answer those quickly and also live where we can. But I'll talk through some background. Michael will share a little bit about his experience with Impact 100. And then we'll hopefully have about 30 minutes at the end for live Q&A from everyone. So with that, I will pass it over to Sarah to get us started and talk us through a little bit more about who Impact 100 is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mackenzie. As Mackenzie already said, I'm Sarah Levitt. I'm the founding president of Impact 100 Atlanta. And our mission is that we are a diverse group of women committed to improving our community by collectively funding transformational grants to make a high impact and sustainable difference in Metro Atlanta. And you'll kind of see that theme throughout as Mackenzie talks about our grant guidelines. A quick background about Impact 100 Atlanta. Impact 100 globally was founded by Wendy Steele in 2001 in Cincinnati. We now have over 80 chapters across the globe, and the total donations to local communities through those chapters is over $178 million. In Impact 100 Atlanta, this is our 5th year of funding, and we've awarded over $1 million to date in 11 grants to 11 different organizations in the Metro Atlanta area. And this year, we are super excited. For the first time, we will be awarding 5 grants, which means that there will be a grant awarded in each of our 5 focus areas, which Mackenzie will touch on later. And those grants will be $90,000. So that means we have 450 members. Each of those members donated $1,000 each, and we pooled our funds together to be able to award these 5 grants this year. So we're very excited about that. It's a huge milestone for Impact 100 Atlanta. If you've been following us from the beginning, we awarded 1 grant our first year, 3 grants our second and third year, and then last year we had 4 grants. So we were close to 5, and we finally got there in our 5th year. So very excited, and especially if you've been following, arts and culture has not been funded before. So this year we will definitely have an arts and culture grant. So great news for all of you who are in the arts and culture area.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. And like she said, we are so thrilled, so excited for all of the members who are able to join us this year and make sure that we're able to make such a powerful impact in the community. So thank you all for trusting us to be a part of this process with us. We are here because of you all and because of the work you do out in the community. So just thank you for the inspiring work that you do that inspired 450 women to come together and want to be a part of it. You will see lots of names throughout this process. I did just see a hand raise. I'm going to go through these slides first and then leave time for hand raising and questions at the end. But feel free, if something's burning in your mind, drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A, and we will answer that question as we go. So like I said, lots of folks who make this work possible. This is just a snapshot of that, but the people you will probably interact with most throughout this grant season. We've heard from Sarah, who is our incredible leader in this work. Laurie Sheehan is our current president and just a force to be reckoned with. We're so grateful for her leadership in all of this work. Jill and I will be the faces you'll probably see most over the next couple of months as we're here to support you all in this nonprofit. Yes, this workshop is being recorded. I just saw that question. Jill and I will be here to answer any questions you have throughout the process. You can find us at grants@impact100atlanta.org. So feel free to reach out at any point. If you have questions about this, we are your gals for that. If you move into our application process, you will spend time getting to know each of our focus area chairs, and you see their names listed here on the screen. Nino is the brilliant mastermind behind Grants Finance, which will also have a role throughout all of this work. So know that all of these women are here to support you. But if you have a question, please do reach out to Jill or myself. Jill, anything in particular that you'd like to share with the group?
Uh, Thanks, Mackenzie. That was great. I'm just glad to be working with you all and can't wait to get this season kicked off and look forward to learning more about your organizations.
Great. Thanks, Jill. So let's jump into all of the work that we do. As Sarah said, this year is particularly exciting because we will have one grant awardee in each of these 5 categories. I'll go into a little bit more about what each of these categories are and how we define them for ourselves, but arts and culture, education, environment and recreation, and animal welfare, family and family and then health and wellness are the 5 categories that you can support us in. If you've been following along, last year, we expanded our environment category to include animal welfare as well. So continue to be creative as you think about your big ideas and ways to be a part of all of this work. As we think about timelines, I know this is helpful. Last year, our awardee talked about the length of this process. We know that this is a long journey. We ask you all to be on with us, and we thank you for trusting us and giving us that time. The LOIs go live today. They are due May 1st, so about 3 weeks to work on that. It is a short, quick LOI process. There are about 10 questions that we ask you to answer, and really think about talking about yourself at a high level, bite-sized amount. Think about that elevator pitch as you work on that LOI. We will aim to notify everyone that they're moving forward into application phase by it should be the beginning of the last week of May. I think right before Memorial Day is when we're aiming to get those notifications out, with the application due on June 19th. If anything changes in this process, if we get a wonderful, overwhelming amount of LOIs, we might adjust that timeline a little bit. But that's when you can expect to do that work. The applications then move to the focus area committees. So there will be a group of 15 to 25, sometimes 30 women who are serving on each of these focus area committees that'll spend time reviewing your applications. That first part takes about 4 to 6 weeks as you think about second half of June through middle of July is the time that we'll spend reviewing those applications. You will be notified by the end of July if you are moving forward to our site visit phase, which is when we'll ask you to take a couple of hours to walk our committee through your work and what's happening on site. We'll schedule that at a time that works best for you. It's usually that second week of August that we're aiming for. So if you want to mark that as a benchmark, you should know if you are moving forward to be a finalist by end of August, early September, our Meet the Finalist event, which is really a networking opportunity for you all to get to know all of our members, to celebrate the milestone that you're in, share a little bit about your work with your board members too. That event is a celebration. In October, we will work through a training process with each of you before our annual meeting, which is the big give, where all of our members come together to hear those finalist presentations and vote to select our 5 recipients this year, which we're very excited about. This timeline is also on our website. We'll send out this deck and recording afterward to everyone who's registered, but these are the big benchmarks. Funding is then made pretty quickly after that November deadline. In December, you'll receive that funding and have 2 years to spend that, and we'll talk through a little bit more of that process too. So as we think about requirements, starting first with an organization type, 3 relatively easy categories to meet. First, you must be a 501c3 tax exempt organization. Second, you need to serve in the 11 Metro Atlanta area counties. And third, have at least 3 years of independent financial audits. I know that is a piece that we always get questions on each year. It is not a requirement, we know, in the state of Georgia for organizations under $1 million of an annual budget to have that. But this is a requirement for our applicant pool, just so we can continue to be good stewards of the funds that we're receiving, and that independent audit allows us to do that work well. For folks that do, perhaps if you're a smaller organization that is not receiving a independent audit or doesn't have 3 years in an independent audit, it can be a great opportunity to collaborate with someone, find another larger nonprofit that does do that work, and then put together a proposal that allows you to be able to receive that funding. Next, if we look specifically at the project type, so that was organization, this is specific to project type. Similarly, we do ask that all projects submitted here do serve within that Metro Atlanta area. You see those listed here on the screen. They're also listed on our application website as you go into Submittable and log in there. And then the type of project, I know this is where we always get the bulk of our questions. We are looking, as Sarah said earlier, for high impact transformational projects. I'll go into those definitions in a little bit, but this can be a capital project, a new program, an expansion of an existing program, or an expanded collaborative effort across many nonprofits. We are not looking to support general operating. I know that that funding is so critical, especially right now, but that is not how we are putting our dollars to work in the community. We have, oh, and I didn't update this for this year, but your grant does need to match the full grant amount, which is $90,000 this year instead of 89, so an additional $1,000 here, and it has to be expended within the 25-month time frame. So project type, I'm going to read these definitions for us because they are really important as you write your application. They are also how we train our volunteers as they're reviewing these applications. They are looking specifically at each of these definitions as they grade your LOIs and your applications that come through. So I'm going to read what each of these mean for us. As we think about high impact, we are looking to understand how your organization is making a significant, either deep or broad impact with your target population. Do you have data to back that up to show the impact of your work? Specific to the project that you're putting forward, will Impact 100's grant be felt well beyond the 2-year period of our grant, both by the organization and also by those you serve? So think about high impact in that space. Sarah has given a great example of this in the past that I've loved. If you are an organization that is targeting hunger relief, for example, if you have an opportunity to feed 1,000 people over a week, or have an opportunity to feed 50 families for a lifetime, that is not the most equitable one. Sarah had a better one, but think of that as you think about high impact. What's that transformational, that sustainable impact, that staying power of the project that you're putting forward? And that's something we spend a lot of time as I think through many of the organizations that didn't move forward either from LOI to application or application to site visit. It was around that high impact piece. Again, deep or broad, not necessarily both, but it can be defined differently for your organization. Sustainable is very important as we think about our work, and we're looking at this both in terms of organizational sustainability and then project specific. So for you as an organization, do you demonstrate strong fiscal discipline, years of being good stewards of donor dollars, and long-term sustainability, a strategic plan, an engaged board, strong, stable senior leadership? Do you have staff members in place that know the history of your work and know how to do this work? There are a couple questions on the LOI for this, and this is where I do encourage you to use some of the optional fields. If you have recently had leadership transition, we know that funding for the nonprofit community is always a challenge and has particularly been a challenge over the past 6 years now, as we continue to battle with federal funding and just the environment that we are in. So please feel free to note in your optional portion of the LOI if you have experienced years in the red or dips due to any COVID funding or to COVID participation or to changes in federal funding. Please do note that, just so that we don't automatically flag your organization for any dips that you've had in revenue for those reasons. Then specific to the project, this is really important as you think about what to put forward. Is this a one-time capital investment, or will it be needed to sustain over time? If you think about that sustainability, do you have a plan in place? If you're asking us to support a new program, what's your revenue model there to ensure that we can sustain this work beyond the life of our grant? If it includes staff or ongoing programmatic expenses, what are ways that you have written into the grant to ensure that we can see there's a plan around that? Does the organization have and show stable growth in annual fundraising that can sustain that incremental cost if it's not a one-time capital project? And is there an appropriate amount of expenses for admin or overhead? We do understand that that is a part of building programs, and so absolutely invite you to include that in your application. Know that if you do include staff costs in your budget, our financial team will do a higher level of scrutiny on that in the financial review process, just to understand what sustainability looks like, what portion of the staff salary is being covered in this. So just think through what that looks like. I think if I were to submit a grant that did include staff costs, it may be helpful, say in year one, if I had a position coming on board. In year one, I might include 40% of that person's salary, and in year two, maybe drop that down to 20 or 15% of that person's salary to show that I am building capacity internally to sustain the grant. So think through options like that. Happy to chat through more questions as we get over to our Q&A. Transformational. This is something that we prioritize in all of our work. Are we creating, sustaining, or expanding positive change? What or who will be changed because of this project that we're funding? Are we meeting a key or critical community need within these focus areas now and in this future? What is the lasting impact that on the population that you're serving that we'll be able to see? And think about this. This is such high impact and transformational. I think, like I said earlier, are truly the pieces that can make or break an LOI moving forward to application. So after we have finished reading through your 10 questions, will it be easy for us to answer, yes, this organization has a high impact that will transform blank community, blank number of people, for how long and what way? I think that's the most important piece that we want to be able to walk away with. Well-defined and viable. After reading through your application, can we quickly articulate the impact here? Are there outstanding questions in any of this work that we might have? Is the work clear, and is it feasible? We love big, bold, ambitious, audacious projects, but we do want to make sure that they are feasible and something that your organization can sustain. We always want to ensure and promote that growth, but in a way that fits within your organization and is a viable path forward. And then local, of course, I said that earlier, but we are looking to see what is the impact that we're making here in our community today. So then as we look at the specific areas of focus, I want to spend a little bit more time on this. So like we've said, this year, we will be awarding grants in each of these, which is so exciting. And I would just encourage you to spend a lot of time reading through these definitions and thinking about what best fits your project, not necessarily your organization. Your organization could be an education organization, but your project that you want funding is specific to an arts classroom or a STEAM room or something like that for the students you're serving. That project would probably be better fit in arts and culture. Or if it's a family room to support parents, it might be better suited in family. So just spend time thinking through that. We will specifically grade the project within the focus area you submit. So I think oftentimes whenever we're reviewing, we'll always have these conversations of, gosh, this is a really strong program, but it's not on the right project. And, because it's judged against these other education ones, for example, it's not the strongest in education. It maybe would have been stronger in family, but we don't make that selection. You make that selection. So really spend some time thinking through each of these. I will say anecdotally that we often get a wonderful amount of applications in education and in health and wellness. So those are some really strong competitive fields. All of these are competitive, but just to know that as you think about what fits best in your box, it is ultimately about which of those programs make the highest impact and transformational piece with the funding that we're able to set aside, but think through what that looks like. So specific to what we won't support, I want to spend some time talking through all of this. Like I said earlier, we do not support general operating expenses or overhead. We know that that is important work. That is just not what our funding is going toward. It is perfectly acceptable for you to have a portion of your budget that does go to overhead, but that should not be the entirety of your application. Debt reduction or operational deficits, that is not something we're looking to fund. So think about that too. And this covers a little bit under interim and bridge funding. We are not looking to fill a gap or fund something that you already purchased and spent money on and are asking us to come back and cover that need. We want to create new or expanded efforts here. We will not make grants to individuals or endowment funds. That's an important piece to remember. I know endowments are so critical right now, but again, that is not what our work is looking to do. For capital improvements, those have to be, you have to have own the facility, own the capital, or have a long-term lease. So if you do not own it, or you do not have at least a 5-year lease, a written agreement, we will not consider that application, that project. In all of the work that we're trying to do, our aim is to be inclusive and equitable in our work. So we would not fund any projects where for faith-based organizations or places of worship, or really any type of organization that is benefiting only their specific denomination or congregation. Faith-based projects are welcome to submit, as long as there's not a requirement that that participation doesn't require engagement in certain activities of faith or denomination or religion. We want to make sure that this is equitable and inclusive to all who are able to access your work. So those are all of your requirements, and then how to do this work. So I think Jill has already dropped in the chat that you can go online and see a PDF of the LOI that's up right now. They all go live later today, that we will use the Submittable platform. If you've been a part of this in the past, it's the same one as before. If you have used Submittable for another application, you can use that same login. You're able to go in, start your application, save it, come back, add notes in it, all of those good things. It's very easy, user-friendly. If you have any questions on Submittable, please reach out to us at grants at Impact 100 Atlanta. We are very happy to help make sure that that is an easy process for you. And you'll see communications from us in that as well. So hopefully it should be an easy one. If you want to go ahead and set up that Submittable profile today, if you don't already have one, that's a great time saver in all of this. So just some tips and tricks for as you work through this process. The budget that you submit does need to fit our budget template, which you will see online. It must equal or exceed that $90,000 grant amount that we are making. If it's exceeding it, we want to see a very clear definition on how you're going to meet that remaining need. So make sure that is very clear. We want these projects to be viable. We want to make sure that if we give you half of the funding, it's not going to sit there and wait while you try to raise the rest. So make sure that think about us as kind of those last dollars in to make a project possible. The questions here are really designed to highlight how your work aligns with our mission and our funding priorities. So spend some time thinking through this. I know we've heard great feedback from applicants in the past that this is unfortunately not an application where you can copy and paste from something else you've written. This is probably a lot of fresh content that you will need to write, but the LOI is very short. Like I said, there's background information that we will ask you to submit, but then we are asking you to very clearly, in quick bite-sized amounts, tell us what unmet community need you are meeting in 25 words. It's very short. A project description, the population you're impacting. We're really targeting underserved populations. What does that look like for you? Your history of work in that community, what that transformational impact is, and saying that in 50 words. So again, we are looking at concise here. Outcomes that are measurable. And that's I think a piece that tripped people up in the past, is they listed out outcomes but did not include how they plan to measure it or what those tracking measurements were. So really encourage you to spend time being thoughtful on that. These are very short answers, as I keep saying. So if you are someone comfortable using AI tools, that can be a really great opportunity for you to write these. I will say, just as you're thinking about all of this, as you're thinking about all of this work and the writing tips in it, I would just encourage you to use plain language as you are writing this. The folks who are reviewing this are a diverse group of really incredible women that come from all different career fields. We have attorneys and accountants and business leaders and community leaders. So everyone is coming in with their own perspective. Very few are grant professionals, so who have spent time and would understand the jargon around nonprofits. So maybe even write out your response first. If you're comfortable with AI, run it through and make sure it pulls out any jargon. Use as elevator pitch and plain speak as you can in this, so that as we quickly review these pieces, it is clear to us what you're doing. Don't use acronyms. If you're trying to get into a word count, acronyms are fine, but just make sure, again, you are talking to an external audience in all of this work. So really encourage you to to use that right type of language as you do this. Think about that elevator pitch and all of this. If I bumped into you in the hall and I said, "What do you need $90,000 for?" It's a very quick, clear sentence. The application gives you much more space to write on. So in this first phase where we're reviewing applications, and I'll say, I think last year we had about 130 LOIs that were submitted that ultimately came down to 37 applications that move forward to that next phase. So again, it's that quick pitch language that we want to hear. Make sure it's feasible in what you're doing, and make sure that it is, again, not operating gap. Programs are fine as long as it is new or expanded or innovating, taking that next step forward in an innovative way. I'm going to pause before I turn the mic over to Michael to make sure there aren't any outstanding questions. It actually looks like Jill had them covered. So Michael, with that, would love to invite you on camera to share with us a little bit about your experience with Impact 100, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hopefully mostly good, but please feel free to share all the hard parts just to help our fellow applicants understand their process.
Sure. Thank you, Mackenzie. It's great to be here and get to speak to all the potential applicants. So as you can see a little bit from the slide, Michael Lucas, I've been at the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation for 16 years and get to be its executive director for the last several. We're the largest, just a little by way of background, we're the largest provider of free holistic legal services in Fulton County to two groups, survivors of intimate partner abuse and tenants in any kind of dispute with their landlord around housing stability. Our project, which we are so grateful was funded, was for one additional mobile office, mobile advocacy van. We've had a mobile advocacy van for a few years that serves survivors as a mobile courtroom and a mobile safe haven for survivors of domestic violence, so we can meet them in a crisis, maybe in the only safe place that they can meet us at that moment. And great results. But part of its model was being able to be exactly where someone needed us, exactly when they could safely meet us. And it simply couldn't be at two places in one time. And the state's largest and longest county. So even a second van is transformational for us to be able to go to tenants and survivors and mobile hearings when was needed. And so that was our project. But in terms of advice and the process, I mean, I think just kind of cutting the chase to what, would be my biggest advice is, we pulled together our team. We asked them to dream with us about things that would really be not just transformational, but that were really tangible, could really be grasped, could really be well explained. Some things might be transformational, but don't fit that definition quite as well. And I think it really brings me to the general advice that I would have, or the biggest piece is, don't just try to spin something that you are already doing or something that isn't really new or transformational. It can absolutely be an expansion of an existing program, as ours was and was successful. But make sure that expansion really makes sense in that case. Why does it need to be expanded? Why now? I guess what I'm getting at overall is, don't force it if it's simply not there. I I'm not saying that any of us do that as nonprofits. If anybody quotes me on some of the stuff I'll say here, I'll deny it. But I think we all know that there are some grant opportunities where maybe aren't as discerning as others. Only because I've been around so long, I don't think there's too many, at least local foundations, that I haven't gotten to have some interaction with. And what I can tell all of you is, even though this is a kind of volunteer run process and maybe not one of the institutional funders that we know in the community, make no mistake, this is one of the more discerning processes that we have ever been through. But I hasten to add, kind of in the most enjoyable way. If you can just take my word for it, you can imagine kind of the most discernible, helpful process to go through, but it is done in a way that, especially if you make it to, say, the site visits, it is done in a way that is enjoyable. It's done in a way that ultimately trying to help you succeed. Once you make it to that step in the process, for example, your category team wants you to succeed. They are helping you. but it will put you through a process and an in-depth kind of involvement with you and your team that won't allow you to kind of get away with just spinning something that isn't actually, as Mackenzie has spent some time describing today. Which I think, leads me to the other thing I wanted to share is approach the process as one that has a lot of benefit beyond just this particular grant funding, um, and whether or not you receive it. Honestly, I recognize that it's easier for someone who an organization that actually received it to say, but I mean it. The process that you go through, particularly around the financial review, and that Nino, the finance chair, is part of, will help you talk about, frame, present whatever your project is better for whoever else you present it to. Like I shared with the Impact 100 group, that we pitched the same idea, at least during the interim time, in written form to other funders. And the work that we did to improve how we talked about, how we explained it, how we made it understandable and tangible, improved how we wrote about it, talked about it with all their funders, and how we just talked about our program generally. So there really is benefit in that, which is to say, take the process and the feedback really seriously. Know it's coming from a place of wanting to make you successful. But also, if you have something that you kind of know you're shoehorning this, I would try to come up with a different proposal.
That's
Mackenzie,
great.
I want to make sure if there's other things that I can answer if you had questions, because I could talk about the process and how much we enjoyed it for a while.
No, you were very gracious. We know, and I appreciate you calling out. It is an in-depth process. As Michael said, there are volunteers leading this work, and Michael can say this too. Each focus area committee believes so deeply in their finalists, so you will have some really big champions, but also folks are asking really tough, difficult questions to make sure that when you are presenting in front of a crowd of 450 folks, you have the tightest presentation and most compelling presentation possible. Michael, I know AVLF applied a year before you received an award. Any advice for folks who might be like, oh, we went through that horrible process before, we don't want to do it again? Any advice for those folks, or anything that you all did to make any changes, or even just stay the course in your application year over year?
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Well, one, I guess we're a living example, that it can pay to try again. Partly because, as Mackenzie said, Impact 100 has rightfully gained a great reputation and just more awareness. There's tons of applicants, so just because you don't make it doesn't mean yours wasn't great. And so definitely don't give up. Second, like I said, there's a ton of value in going through the process, and I would say that even if we hadn't won, in honing how you apply to any number of funders. And in terms of like whether you should kind of stay the course, I think it just goes back to the other thing I was trying to convey is just be really honest with yourself. If the first one was trying to shoehorn something that could be great, something that you might have gotten funded with a different funder, but didn't because this one is more discerning, just be honest with yourself about that. The process is such that I really don't think you're going to pull one over on anybody. And so you can go back to the drawing board from what you learned from that first process. That the only other thing I'd say about that I wanted to mention is, because your advice was well given, obviously, about like plain language and no kind of industry jargon, because it's a group of volunteers. And also, like, again, don't make no mistake, like, it was a really interesting mix of, yes, folks who just they're not in this space, so you might need to take Mackenzie's advice about plain language, but they're also incredibly accomplished professionals and wherever they came from. And also sometimes when they're incredibly accomplished on the finance side, absolutely know how to, ask strong questions about a budget, which is actually a perfect kind of mix of like, all right, I have to speak about this plainly, but also be really tight. I think you said it was perfect. So it's a good gauntlet to have to run, I think, to come up with a really good pitch in the end.
Yeah, that's a great reminder, Michael. And I think you tell me if this doesn't feel fair, but I think is for those folks who are grant writers on this call, the LOI and the application will have a lot of that plain speak language that is reviewed by many different people. So I think those first LOIs are reviewed. Anywhere from 6 to 8 individuals will review that and make sure it moves forward. And then for the application, you're being reviewed by the full committee. But then once you move from application to site visit, Michael, I bet it's fair to say that when you sit down for that site visit, that's when you get peppered with all of the questions that come up from, someone who has a background as an attorney and has some very specific legal questions for you, or the accountants in the room who have very specific questions around how you're handling sustainability. So is that fair to say, Michael, that maybe first you can be used to that grant process, but that site visit, you're really getting those specific levels of expertise from each member in it?
So as I said, like obviously don't sleep on that part of the process. Have folks there with you from your team that really can speak to the work at the site visit, but make sure y'all have all met or on the same page. So I think that's right, Mackenzie. I would also add that there is a ability to work with you and wanting you to succeed. So I'll say for us, I think not from year to year, but just in this process, our own, not just how we talked about it, but our own concept for how we would use a second van improved because during the process from the LOI through the site visit to the pitch, because of how the team worked with us. So there's also like there's that grace given. And again, it's not a gotcha for the sake of gotcha. It's a strong process to make you better. So I think that's refreshing and a great way to go into something.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you move forward to site visit, you have really big champions on the committee already that are going to ask those questions so that they can make sure that you have all the right answers when they move you forward to the full group. Well, thank you so much, Michael. We so appreciate you being our guinea pig in this and being one of our partners. We're so grateful to be able to support ABLF.
Love being here. Thank you, and good luck to everybody.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, well, we would love to open it up for questions. We've been responding to ones that come through in the chat. Feel free to continue to drop those in or raise your hand. I think I am technologically advanced enough to be able to unmute you if you have questions and do want to raise your hand for this process. A couple other tips that I've just thought through. I know that we have supported quite a bit of vans in the past. You do not have to put forward a van project though. Those have been, but that is such a good example of what feels tangible for members to be able to understand. We have folks coming from all different walks of life, all different ages, all different zip codes across Atlanta. So those vans do represent something that is tangible for people to understand. But that being said, it does not have to be a van. If you are curious about other grants, and you can see them all on our website. I was just looking for the link so I could drop it in easily for you guys to see past recipients. Here it is. So just would encourage you to spend time looking through that and thinking through what these opportunities could be. Like I said, it can be anything tangible. It can be a project. Think about allowing an opportunity for us as women to come alongside your work when we do bring someone in. And Jill could probably speak to this better, but once someone gets to the finalist stage and even site visits, once you are a finalist with us, you're a part of our family. We will come volunteer with you. We want to be annual supporters of you individually. This is a great opportunity just to grow even your network if you don't make it all the way to receiving an award at the end. We are so grateful to partner alongside all of our funding partners in this, and we know we are aware that this is a longer application process, and we try to be respectful of that and understand that we're here to walk with you and help advance this work. Any questions from the group? Feel free to raise your hand. Kathleen, I'm going to let you jump in. Oh, wait, I lost your name. You raised your hand and then it went away. Kathleen, did you want to chime in with a question?
Can you hear me, dear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm with the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. We are a nonprofit organization. I wanted to see if you can put up that website again that we need to go to, Miss Brent.
Yeah, absolutely. To log in for submittable.
Yes, ma'am.
I will drop it in the chat right now. Let me know if you're able to access that.
I do. I see
Okay,
it there.
great. Wonderful.
One other quick question. On what is very interesting, the information you're supplying today. Would we be able to get this webinar into my email sent to me?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Wonderful.
We've got this
Wonderful.
recorded. We'll send it out to everyone. We do really, even if you're talking with peers or if you aren't the individual who will be submitting the grant, we really do encourage folks to spend time reading through this, listening to it, reading the slides. There's a question on the application actually that asks if you've been able to participate in it, just because it does provide a lot of that information. So yes, Kathleen, we'll make sure you have this. Feel free to pass it along to anyone else.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, Kathleen. Tamika, I'm going to let you jump in next.
Greetings. Thank you so much. I'm with Facts to Thrive. My question is for clarity. The project this is for only brand new projects?
Not necessarily, Tamiko. It could be an expanded project. So if you have been doing great work in a certain community and you know that to really make a difference, you need to expand to reach more people or deliver a different type of work. So think about expansions and not necessarily new, but we are not really looking to support annual operating. So if this is something that you do every day, it's not that you can't submit for it, but I will say it probably won't move forward as you look at other applications in that pool. So look more at expanded opportunities if you're looking for something that your work that you're already doing. Any other questions? I see a question about Paulding. If you can specifically show, if Rachel, the question in the chat, if you can show, like if you have zip codes or addresses to show that you are serving people in the 11 county area that we serve, you could submit. Would just encourage you to make that very clear, because again, you're going up against others that will be specific in those areas. So as long as it's a strong project and you can prove that you're serving people in across Metro Atlanta, then yes, that would suffice. Heather, I'm going to let you jump in.
Yes, I'm with an organization called Back on My Feet. It's a national organization with local chapters. So we have our own 990. We roll up into a national organization. So we have a individual local budget, but not audited financials at the local level. How does that work?
That should be fine, Heather, as long as you've been serving the Atlanta community for 3 years. We have had others submit under an affiliate or a national or a regional 990. We will review those same audited financials with that lens. We might have more questions for you as we look through your budget, may ask for some, past budget versus actuals as you walk through that process. But yes, that should be fine. Just make sure it's clear. And you'll have some of those optional areas. We ask you to validate that your candid profile is up to date. I would just clarify in there so that, and really advice for anyone, if there's something that could possibly raise a question for someone, go ahead and type an answer in there so that you're not disqualified just because we were left with a question at the end of the day. So I would just clarify that on your LOI.
Okay. And then just another question about expansion. We are a service organization where we have social workers that work directly with our population, and we are looking to expand with a whole, like an additional staff to be able to support and grow the work that we're doing. So would that qualify as expansion, adding staff?
Yes, that does qualify as expansion, but I would make sure that you have a really strong sustainability plan there.
Okay.
Adding a full one-time staff member or like the full budget of a staff member would just raise questions. So if there's an opportunity for you to do staff and maybe some tangible like supplies or other items within that could fit in the budget so that it's not fully staff, and then you also show kind of your pipeline of being able to sustain that growth in the same way, if you could share out that we have increased our staff X% over the last however many years, and this is how we've continually sustained our work. Our annual fund grows at this rate annually. We feel comfortable making sure that this isn't just, we would hate to give a grant, Heather, that then that person has to be let go because we are not a sustaining revenue stream for you.
Right.
And
Definitely.
to clarify that in the
Yeah.
application. And even if they're, yeah, I would look for any other changeable pieces that you could potentially layer it in, like if it is a curriculum, if it is anything else that has staying power alongside staff member, I would see that strengthening your application.
Okay. Thank you. That's
Of course. Sydney, I see your question in the chat. What does the site visit process look like, and how should we prepare? That's a great question. And Jill, I'll ask you to chime in if I say any of this incorrectly, but as you move through application, we will send out dates that our committee, each of the committees will come out and visit with you. We'll have about an hour and a half of time, sometimes 2 hours, and we'll ask you to bring alongside a board member, anyone else who would be helpful, any other staff members that would be helpful to answering questions. Our focus area chair will reach out to you. They'll be your point person throughout this process. So you'll have one person that you'll be in touch with. We'll follow up if ever we don't hear a response from you. We know emails can always get caught in spam, but they'll send you an outline of an agenda for that. Oftentimes it is walking through whatever your project is, letting us see your impact firsthand and in person, and then giving an opportunity for the committee to ask questions that have come up as they've reviewed their application. And similar to what Michael said, through that lens of how do we make sure this is really the strongest winning pitch that goes forward. So questions, if they're reviewing your budget and have a quick question about how something showed up, that would come up in this process. If we have a question on how you're going to sustain work, that'll often come up in this process. But anything else, Jill, that you would add to that, what those site visits look like, or Sarah?
No, I think that's great. It is a pretty well-defined agenda, and we work with your time frame because we know that the fall can be a busy time for some of our organizations, especially in education. So we make sure that we're working with you to schedule that activity, and the women really are prepared with questions, and it's a terrific engagement from both sides. We truly learn a tremendous amount about your organization through that process.
Thanks, Jill. Cindy, I see your question here about engaging with members. We try to keep these processes pretty separate. This is our information session on the Impact 100 process. I was chatting with Jill earlier, since we don't usually get to do the webinar so close to the announcement. We wanted to give you all a little bit of extra time to work on the LOI. That's why we hosted it the day after the big reveal. So we might have one more Q&A session on the 27th, and we'll send that out to everyone, but there is not really an opportunity to engage with members outside of this. As you move forward through the process, there absolutely is. But right now we try to keep it constrained to the application so that it can be equitable for all of our applicants in that process. I see that Pat Dubez answered a question. That's a great question, that we have a preference for capital projects. They are absolutely considered equally, Pat, but again, as you think about how to present these, sometimes you are putting forward something in front of a room of 450 people, and if your if your program does not feel like it has that staying power, sometimes it's just like the visual and audible impact of capital can resonate more with the group. But absolutely, they are absolutely considered equitably. We moved many new or expanded programs forward. I would just think about how you illustrate that staying power of the project or program that you're putting forward, and helping that really have a lasting impact. So put forward both. But you are correct that often we have leaned towards supporting capital needs, because that's just what's resonated with the full group. But we have over 100 new members this year, so the voting pool changes every year. There really isn't an opportunity to have an unfair advantage in this, because every woman has a vote as we move through our members. I saw a couple of questions that we received as hosts, so I just wanted to read those out loud. How many grants will be made this year? Those are 5 grants of $90,000 each. And then a question of how quickly do funds need to be spent once they're received? We ask you to expend them within a 25-month period. that gives you, since you'll receive it early December, that gives you 2 full calendar years to spend it. We do ask that you stick to the budget that you've submitted. We are happy to work with you, and that'll be Jill you'd be working with if you had any questions or any adjustments needed to the budget once you've been awarded, but we really do like to stick to that original piece. Okay, last one. How competitive is the LOSH? Great question. Last year, I'm going to do the math really quickly. We moved forward 30% of the LOIs from LOI stage to application. So it is a pretty competitive process. Our applicant pool has grown every year. I think Jill or Sarah might know this better, but I know last year we had 130. The year before, I think we had 108. The year before that, I think it was just under 100. So that pool is growing, and which we appreciate, but also the number of grants is also growing. So great opportunity for everyone to be involved. Hopefully this year with 5 grants, we hope that applicant pool to grow even more than 130. Jill, can I ask you to speak to the reporting process? I know you work so closely with folks to keep everyone up to date after the grant has been made.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on to, the progression through the phases, we typically have 3 to 4 candidates per category that move into the site visit phase. And then ultimately 2 will be named in each category to progress as finalists. So there will be 10 total grant finalists who will present at our annual meeting, and ultimately 5 will be the winners. So just to clarify that. And then I have the fun responsibility to help you all, the grant winners, through the process of facilitating, getting you the funds, working through your project. There's project reporting that is impromptu along the way. I set up meetings, and we exchange emails and chat to see how you're progressing, provide updates so that I can update our board as to how things are going. And there is a formal report at the 1-year mark and a formal report at the 2-year mark. And the reports are pretty basic. It's, how much has been expended, what benefits are you starting to see, and if nothing has been utilized yet, it is just more of a, what is your timeline? So it's accountability, and but it's also collaborative, because I'm also asking you for, what are some volunteer opportunities where we could talk to our members and say, hey, this organization has a need for clothing. That's something we're doing with an organization from last year. We're doing a clothing drive for the Drake House, because women are trying to go out and interview for jobs from an economic perspective. So, we're always looking for how can we continue to partner with your organization and help our members continue to engage with you. We have a number of members who have volunteered on their own because we promote your website. So we leverage social media as well to continue to make you visible within the community.
Yeah. Tamiko, you're welcome to, looks like you've got your hand raised.
Yes, I just remember you had the seniors in the family category, and then you had a health and wellness. So I'm trying to figure out, would I submit under health and wellness, or would I submit under families if our program is targeted for seniors, or does it have to be a whole family, including seniors?
That is absolutely your call, Tamiko. As you look at your project, what feels like the most compelling category to be within. I will say, if you do families, we get lots of applicants in that category that are for children and families. So just as you think about what's most compelling, I'm not sure what your project would be, but I would sit through that lens of, will this be better? Will this have a better chance of moving forward if it's reviewed against other applicants that are serving children and families, or will it be better served reviewing against other applicants that are meeting those improvements to mental and or physical well-being? So really think about it through those 2 categories, and you can pick whichever one feels best to you.
Our program focuses specifically on seniors. That's why it's like just
Yeah,
go.
I mean, you could go either one. So it's ultimately your choice, which feels best as you outline those. And just, both categories have their advantages and disadvantages, and those are two very popular categories too. So whichever feels, I would write out maybe some of those as you go through the LOI. There's at the very beginning you select which of the five, but I would maybe write out your full application first. And then spend some time reading that against the definitions we have for family and health and wellness and see, okay, does this seem like it stands out most? Does your unmet need really fit more within family, or does it fit more within health and wellness? And that's your call to make.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions? Okay, I'm hearing crickets. Well, thank you all so much. Like Sarah and Jill and I have said, we are so grateful to be able to elevate your good work in the community. Impact 100 would not be growing, would not have the impact we have today if it weren't for the incredible, hard, powerful work that each of y'all are doing on the ground every day. We know our application process is not an easy one. But we promise it will be meaningful, and we're here to walk alongside you. I have the opportunity during my day job to help lots of organizations write grants, and the process for Impact 100 is truly unique. This is not transactional. This is relational. We are women who all have busy lives and have said this is so important to advance transformational work in Atlanta, and that's because of what you all do. So thank you for letting us be a partner with you in this work. We're so grateful. We're excited for this year ahead. I'll drop our email in the chat one more time if you have questions. We will be sending out a recording of this to everyone who participated. We'll also have it available on our website. Feel free to reach out to that email. You'll find Jill and I at that spot. We'll be happy to do whatever we can, but look forward to reviewing all of your LOIs for the rest of this month, and we will be in touch after May 1st. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone.